When you look at maps of American cities, you might notice that different ethnicities are often divided, and this is no coincidence. No, this is due to a deliberate undertaking by the American government in collaboration with banks and real estate agents. This practice was known as redlining. Now you might ask, what is redlining? Well, redlining is all about housing investment. When a city is redlined, it is divided into four specific types of districts. Green districts were the best properties in the city for property investment, far from industry, and close to amenities. Green district housing was often suburban and was sold to rich and middle-class white Americans. Blue districts were considered, quote, still desirable, and were also often white. Yellow districts were considered, quote, declining, and were poorer with less amenities. And this is where we get to where most minorities were forced to live: red districts. Red districts were considered hazardous and were often close to industrial and commercial areas. These regions were considered to not have good investment value. Thus, real estate agents often sold these districts almost exclusively to the poor and to minorities. Red districts were also known to experience denial of insurance, health care, and amenities such as grocery stores, causing many of these neighborhoods to become, quote, food deserts with limited access to good food. Red districts were most often black inner city neighborhoods, and this was no coincidence. The processes behind redlining can trace their roots to the sales practices of the National Association of Real Estate Boards, but more specifically to economist Richard Ely and his Institute for Research in Land Economies and Public Utilities. Ely's ideas were codified with the National Housing Act of 1934 and the establishment of the Federal Housing Administration, or FHA. The FHA's chief land economist, Homer Hoyt, formalized the redlining process. The FHA's policies sped up the isolation and urban decay of inner city neighborhoods and pushed racial segregation on a national scale. In 1935, the Federal Home Loan Bank Board, or FHLBB, asked the Homeowners Loan Corporation, or HOLC, side note, I know, a lot of acronyms, to look at the 239 American cities and to draft, quote, residential security maps to indicate the level of investment security in American cities. While many of these red districts were white, almost all urban minority communities were classified into red districts. The FHA manuals instructed banks to avoid, quote, inharmonious racial groups and recommended that municipal governments enact zoning that restricts racial minorities. Between 1945 and 59, African Americans received less than 2% of all federally insured home loans. Property insurance companies also assisted in redlining, with an Aetna bulletin from 1964 calling for underwriters to, quote, use a red line around questionable areas on territorial maps. While the Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968, redlining still continued. In 1973, following a national housing conference, a group of Chicago activists, led by the Northwest Community Organization, or NCO, formed the National People's Action, or NPA, to fight disinvestment and redlining of neighborhoods throughout the nation. The NPA's goal was to establish a network of community organizations to attempt to get a law passed requiring banks to reveal their lending patterns. Another problem the NPA fought was blockbusting, where banks encouraged what was known as white flight from urban neighborhoods by buying urban blocks at a discount, then renting to low-income, usually black tenants. At the third annual housing conference in Chicago in 1974, 800 delegates from 35 cities and 25 states attended. The same year, Chicago's Metropolitan Area Housing Association, or MAHA, was successful in having redlining outlawed in Illinois. In Massachusetts, Governor Michael Dukakis, upon being elected in 1975, ordered statewide disclosures of redlining and mortgage practices by the Massachusetts State Banking Commission. The suspected redlining in the state was revealed to the public. The MPA was able to attain a disclosure of mortgage lending practices with the passing of the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act of 1975, and in 1977 they achieved the passage of the Community Reinvestment Act. Despite this, racially segregated neighborhoods persist in many American cities, such as Chicago, Atlanta, New York, or Los Angeles. While progress has been made, there is still much more work that needs to be done. Thanks for watching.